Here's a question that decides how a supported project actually goes, and almost nobody asks it out loud. Who, inside your business, owns this work? Not the deciding, the doing, the steady stream of reading, gathering, organizing, following up, and keeping track that a project quietly demands from start to finish. In most small businesses, the honest answer is either nobody, so it drifts and stalls, or the owner by default, so it gets crammed on top of everything else they already carry until it is done badly or not at all. Neither is a real answer, and the gap between them is where projects quietly fall apart. So in the next few minutes, we are going to talk about ownership, who should hold this work, how to divide it, and how to make sure it has a home inside your business. One note before we begin: this channel is educational only. We are not a government agency, we are not affiliated with or endorsed by Go Business, Enterprise Singapore, or any government body, and nothing here is official advice. We name no schemes, no criteria, and no figures, because those change over time. So we will always point you back to the official source, gobusiness.gov.sg, to confirm what actually applies to your situation before you rely on any of it. The work needs an owner. Every project involves a body of work that is not the project itself, but wraps around it. The understanding, the paperwork, the coordination, the keeping of records, the chasing of loose ends. This work is real. It takes time, and it does not do itself. Yet, businesses routinely start projects without ever deciding who is responsible for it. Work without an owner is work that happens late, incompletely, or in a panic, because everyone assumes someone else is handling it and no one actually is. Naming an owner is not bureaucracy. It is the difference between work that gets done steadily and work that gets discovered undone at the worst moment. Before a project begins, someone needs to be able to say, "This is mine, I am the one making sure it happens." That single act of assignment prevents more project trouble than any amount of skill, because most of what goes wrong is not done badly, it is simply not done at all. When grant work is nobody's job, the most common failure is the quiet one, where the work belongs to nobody. It is not that anyone decided to neglect it, it is that no one was ever made responsible, so it lives in the cracks between people, each assuming another has it. Nobody's job is the job that does not get done, and it fails invisibly because there is no single person to notice the gap until it has grown. In a busy small business, this is almost the default state of anything that is not someone's clear responsibility, and a project generates exactly this kind of ambiguous, easily orphaned work. The remedy is simply to refuse to let the work be ownerless. The moment you decide to pursue a project, decide in the same breath who owns the work around it, before it has a chance to fall into the cracks. An owned task can be tracked and helped. An ownerless one can only be mourned later. The owner is not the default choice. When ownership does get assigned, it usually lands on the business owner by reflex, because they care most and it feels like theirs. But the owner is often the worst person to hold the day-to-day work, not because they cannot do it, but because their attention is the most valuable and most contested resource the business has. Piling the steady grind of a project onto the person who is also selling, serving, leading, and deciding is how the work gets squeezed out by more urgent things and done at midnight or not at all. The owners caring about the project does not make them the right person to carry its administration. So question the reflex. Ask whether this work truly needs the owner's hands, or whether it needs the owner's oversight while someone else's hands actually do it. Very often, the best arrangement is the owner staying accountable while the doing sits elsewhere, which we will come to. What owning the work actually involves. To assign ownership well, it helps to be clear about what the work actually is, because it is more varied than owners expect. There is understanding, the reading and making sense of what is required. There is gathering, the collecting of documents and information. There is doing, the actual preparation and completion of what needs completing. There is coordinating, the keeping of providers, colleagues, and timelines moving together. And there is tracking, the ongoing keeping of records and watching of loose ends across the life of the project. These are genuinely different kinds of work, that suit different people, and lumping them together as vaguely the grand stuff is what makes them feel overwhelming. When you see the work as distinct parts, you can think clearly about who is best placed for each, rather than searching for one heroic person to shoulder the entire undifferentiated pile alone. Split the work into parts. Because the work is made of different parts, the smartest move is usually to split it rather than to hand the whole thing to one person. Some parts need judgment and knowledge of the business, some need care and organization, some need only time and reliability. Splitting lets you match each part to whoever is genuinely best suited, and it stops any single person from being buried. It also makes the work less fragile, because it is no longer entirely dependent on one individual who might get sick, get busy, or leave. Splitting does not mean scattering, and we will insist in a moment that one person still stays accountable for the whole. But the doing can be shared sensibly across the people you have. A project's work is far more manageable as a set of assigned pieces than as a single mountain sitting on one desk. And most small teams can carry the pieces even when they could never have carried the mountain. What only you can do. Some parts of the work genuinely require the owner, and it is worth being clear about which. So you spend your scarce attention only where it truly belongs. The decisions are yours, whether to pursue the project, what it is really for, what you are willing to commit. The knowledge of the business is yours, the context that lets someone judge whether the project fits and what it should achieve. And the final accountability is yours, the standing behind the whole thing. These are things you cannot delegate because they depend on being you, on your understanding and your authority. Everything else, the gathering, the organizing, the routine, completing, and tracking, does not require you specifically, even if it currently falls to you. So draw a firm line around the handful of things only you can do. Protect your attention for those, and be willing to let the rest go to other hands. What can be shared or handed off? Once you have marked off the few things only you can do, look honestly at everything else, because most of the work around a project can be shared or handed off without any loss. The gathering of documents, the keeping of orderly records, the routine following up, the coordinating of schedules, much of the preparations, these need reliability and care far more than they need you. They can go to a capable person on your team, or be shared among several, or in some cases be handed outside the business entirely. The question for each part is not whether you could do it, since you could do most of it, but whether you are the only one who could, and for the majority of the work, the answer is plainly no. Handing off the parts that do not need you is not laziness, it is how you keep your own hands free for the parts that do. Build a little internal capability. There is a longer-term reward hidden in all this, which is that a project is a chance to build a small amount of capability inside your business rather than depending entirely on outside help every time. When someone on your team learns to handle the gathering, the records, the coordination for one project, that knowledge stays with the business and makes the next project easier. Over time, a business that keeps this work in-house, at least in part, develops a quiet competence at it, so that support stops being a daunting special event and becomes something the business simply knows how to handle. This is worth weighing against the convenience of handing everything outside, because outside help solves today's project and leaves you no wiser, while building a little internal capability compounds. You do not have to become experts, you just have to let your business learn a little each time rather than outsourcing the learning along with the work. The unaccountable person always, whatever you split and whatever you share, one rule holds firm: there must always be a single person accountable for the whole of it. Splitting the doing is wise. Splitting the accountability is fatal, because when everyone is a bit responsible, no one truly is, and things fall between the shares exactly as they fell between people when the work had no owner at all. So name one person, which may be you or may be someone you trust, whose job is to hold the entire thing in view, to know the status of every part, and to notice when something is slipping. The others do pieces. This person owns the picture. This single point of accountability is what turns a set of shared tasks into a coherent effort, rather than a collection of loose ends. And it is the cheapest insurance a project has against the quiet failures that come from diffused responsibility. Owning it even when you delegate. And there is a subtle trap in handing work off, which is confusing delegating the doing with delegating the responsibility. And it applies whether the hands are inside your business or outside it. When you give a part of the work to someone else, you hand over the doing. But if you are the accountable person, you keep the ownership, the knowing what is happening, and the making sure it happens. Owners who forget this hand a task to someone and then stop paying attention, assuming it is now off their plate entirely, and are surprised later to find it half done or misunderstood. Delegating well means staying lightly connected, checking that the work is moving, being available for the questions only you can answer, without hovering or taking it back. The person doing the work should feel supported and clear, not abandoned. You can give away almost all of the work, but if the accountability is yours, you never quite give away the ownership. The owner still confirms at the source. One caution that ownership does not remove, however you divide the work, and whoever holds which part. The responsibility for getting the actual scheme details right ultimately sits with the accountable person, and those details come from the official source. It is easy, when work is shared, for everyone to assume someone else checked the requirements, or to rely on a colleague's or a provider's understanding of how something works, when the authoritative answer lives at gobusiness.gov.sg and changes over time. So build into your ownership the discipline of confirming the important things officially rather than trusting that they were confirmed somewhere along the chain. We deliberately name no criteria and no figures here because those are exactly what shift, and no amount of good internal organization replaces checking the current official source. Owning the work includes owning the accuracy of what the work is based on, and that is one thing that cannot be safely assumed away. A closing thought. So here's the question to carry away, the one almost nobody asks out loud. Who owns this work? Not the deciding, but the doing, the reading and gathering and organizing and tracking that a project quietly demands. Refuse to let it be nobody's job, and question the reflex that dumps it all on the owner, whose scarce attention belongs on the few things only they can do. See the work as distinct parts. Keep the decisions and the accountability for yourself, and share or hand off everything that does not truly need you, using the chance to build a little capability inside your business. Keep one person accountable for the whole always. Remember that delegating the doing is not delegating the responsibility, and confirm the real scheme details on gobusiness.gov.sg rather than assuming someone did. Remember too that everything here is general and educational. We are not a government agency, and we are not affiliated with or endorsed by anyone. If this helped you give the work a home, subscribe for more plain English Singapore grant explainers, and we will keep making the invisible parts manageable.